Today's question is about HOAs. In the book, they call them assessments, but really they talk about HOA and condo dues.
Well, if you are in the market or in this area already, you may know this, but a large percentage of homes in Northern Virginia are going to be in HOA or condo associations. In fact, 74% of all transactions last year were properties that were either in a HOA or a condo association.
That is true. So it's going to be hard for you to get around the additional fee that's going to be charged to you through an association. And you kind of got to get used to it. Even in new construction properties or new construction developments, HOA dues are just going to be a natural part of that process, because one of the things that make HOAs attractive to the local government is that the services that the HOA takes on, the county or the local government doesn't have to take care of anymore. So that's why you see a lot of these special assessments, and that's why they're so popular too.
Yeah, and so when you think about HOA fees, you want to realize that we see them either billed monthly, quarterly, or annually. A lot of times, when you're dealing with single family homes, you're going to see more of the quarterly or annual fees, because many single family homes are going to be in smaller associations that don't have as many amenities as some of these smaller associations that you'll see, or not even necessarily smaller, as some of the associations that you'll see when you're looking at townhouse communities are mixed use communities in which you have townhouses and single families. So oftentimes those assessments are going to be lower on single family homes because they only have perhaps snow removal, trash removal, or very few common areas, because a large part of the fees are going to go towards upkeep and maintenance of the common areas.
So we live in Kingstown, and Kingstown is one of the larger
Mhm.
a larger planned communities, and just one of the larger associations with over 5,000 home owners. Because they have such a large association, they can offer their residents more amenities.
Now, these fees are not set in stone, so they will fluctuate or go up year over year. So almost every year you can expect to see some change in your HOA fees. Usually it's only a few dollars, but over time, over a 5 or 10 year period, it can be a remarkable difference.
And you should expect your HOA fees to go up just due to inflation, because there's going to be rising cost for the lawn care, the people who take care of the lawn, also just the taxes in general, because the HOA does own the other portion or the common area pieces of real estate. So if your property taxes goes up, then you should expect the HOA's property taxes to go up as well for all of the property under management.
Now, another thing we want to talk about are unexpected fees that go along with the association, right? So we know you have your quarterly fee or your monthly fee that you're going to pay to your association for use of the amenities, for common area upkeep, things of that nature. But then there are also occasionally special assessments. And so those special assessments can come out of nowhere if there's a lawsuit that your association is involved in, or it could be, some huge item that needs to be repaired or replaced within the community. And it's an unforeseen expense that could cost, several $1,000s for each individual owner. So when you receive your HOA resale disclosure packet, so in Virginia, if you're buying a property that is in a homeowners association or a condo association, you're going to get the resale disclosure packet, and you're going to have 3 days to review those documents. A lot of times buyers focus in on HOA violations. They want to make sure all violations are cleared, if there's some type of architectural change that the seller made that wasn't approved, or if the house needs to be power washed, whatever the case may be. A lot of buyers focus on those violations, but it's also important that you go through the bylaws, the rules and regulations. But probably most important is going to be the financials. You want to take a look at their master insurance plan. You want to see how much money they have in reserves.
All right, so let's talk about a few pros and cons of being in an HOA or a condo association. As far as the pros are, you have access to previously mentioned amenities. I find it comforting to have a gym right in my community that also comes with a swimming pool and all these other amenities, which is one of the reasons why we really enjoy living in Kingstown. And then you have community events, and I would also say just like a community feel to it, right? So like in some areas or some developments, they may be like a strip of new construction properties or a strip of properties that kind of resemble each other, but everybody doesn't really feel like they are part of that neighborhood. Whereas in Kingstown, where we live, and we also know that this is the same for Franklin Farm and also Reston, there's this kind of pride of ownership or pride of being a part of this larger group that comes with HOAs. A topic that some people don't like to cover is the fact that HOAs put restrictions on what you can and cannot do. These restrictions are sometimes seen as a limitation to your property rights or what you can do to your home. I'll say that the restrictions also help you to not have to have the uncomfortable conversation with your neighbors in the event that they don't maintain their properties. There are sometimes when you go into some neighborhoods where there are several cars in the parking lot, or there's like commercial vehicles that are parked in the parking lot. The grass isn't kept, the exterior of the property isn't maintained, the backyard is falling to pieces, the fences, all those other maintenance issues that you as a homeowner would like your neighbor to do. And an HOA will kind of step in and be that middleman or the mediator between the two of you. You also have a unspoken rule between you and your neighbors that says, I'm going to take care of my property if you take care of your property, because property values are tied to curb appeal. Curb appeal isn't just how your property looks, it's really it's a combination of how your property looks and how your neighbor's property looks. So if you're trying to sell your property in the future, which you will most likely, if the person is coming through that community and they see somebody with overgrown grass, they see a lot of cars in the front yard, or cars in various levels of condition or being rehabbed or fixed or repaired or stuff like that, if they see broken shutters, dirty exterior, then people will judge the neighborhood in addition to judging your property. So that's one of the things, another thing that's good about HOAs. Now, the cons are, we've already kind of talked about this, where we talk about it limits your freedom. There are fines for violations. Sometimes people feel like the fines are unreasonable, but they do have to get you to do these different items. Everybody has the same limitations, so you have to be comfortable with it, because again, more than 70% of the properties in Northern Virginia are sold inside of an HOA. So or HOA or condo. So it's not like you're going to be able to get out of that in the Northern Virginia area. Another thing that's not common, but it is something you should be concerned about, is the fact that if you don't pay your dues, your dues, your association dues, homeowners or condo, then you could have the risk of being foreclosed on in the future, right? So they could take your property to settle any type of debt that you have to the association. And this is, I think it's a con, and it's a pro, because if your neighbors are behind on their dues, that money comes from somewhere. So that means that the rest of the community is kind of pitching in for this individual who isn't,
they're not upholding their end of the deal, right? So as you said, the money comes from somewhere. So essentially everyone else has to pitch in to contribute and cover the fact that this person is not paying their dues.
That's true.
Because the budget has to be met. Whatever the annual budget for the association is, they need that money because they have expenses that, bills that they need to pay.
The last thing I want to talk about before we move on to our next section is the fact that if you're going into a condominium association, if you have a pet, or if you think about having a pet, make sure you review your resale disclosures or the condo docs and see if there is a pet restriction. There's nothing more disheartening than learning that you are closing on a property, or that you close on a property and you can't bring that furry loved one with you.
Absolutely, because we have associations that have not only breed restrictions, but also size and weight restrictions and a number of pets. So if you're purchasing a property that's going to be in a condo association, you want to make sure that you're able to meet the qualifications or fall within those guidelines of that development. Again, as Abraham said, before settlement. And that's why it is important that during that 3-day period that you have to review the documents, that you actually read them. I always stress that to our clients. And the reason we stress that is because the documents are quite long. It's going to be several hundred pages. And you only have 3 days to go over it. So you want to make sure, again, you're going to check for violations, but you also want to make sure you check those rules and regulations to make sure that there isn't a glaring issue. Because once you've closed on a property, or even once that 3-day period has passed, you're just out of luck.
Excellent. So that was question number 30. What are assessments? Do all townhouses, condos, and co-ops have them? And that was from our 100 questions every first-time home buyer should ask